Welcome back. Joe Giganti, regular Joe, joining me now on the hotline, running for the United States Senate in Delaware. So a man he's on a mission already, if you know he's running as a Republican for the Senate in Delaware, but running not just to win in Delaware against, obviously, the home turf of the Biden crime family, but in a competitive primary for the Republican Party nomination where the opponent is a lifelong Democrat, recently convert to Republicanism, supposedly. But we've got John Shulli on the line. John, I appreciate you joining us here on the Regular Joe Show. Before we get into what seems to me to be one of the most bizarre ways to try to grow our majority, let's just start with, for those that don't know who you are, tell them who John Shulli is and how you got to be where you are today that you're running for Senate.
Right. Hey, thanks, Joe. Thanks a lot for having me on board. I'm born and raised in Delaware. I went to ROTC in Arizona, and 30 years later, I'm a colonel in the Army Reserves. I'm an instructor part-time at the U.S. Army War College. I spent 20 of those 30 years overseas, Germany, Iraq, Kuwait, South Korea, all nice places. I retired I had two hats. One, military reserves, second, being civil service. So my last assignment at Pentagon was 3 years at the Chief of Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office for the Secretary of Defense in that war. So I retired from the civil service from 1 year left for Army, because after 30 years, you're out as a colonel. So 1 year left. But yeah, why am I here? Because I came back in 22 after 30 years away from Delaware. And leading up to the election of 24, of course, you had Trump being shot. You had Charlie Kirk being murdered. And from a military point of view, I'm thinking the Rubicon's been crossed. Normally, your opponent, your adversary party, doesn't cross the line. I won't say Democrat Party. Your adversaries don't cross the line and start killing your politicians. So something bad has happened in this country where we're getting to that point where we're assassinating our opponents. And here in Delaware, I've noticed, again, back up 30 years, of course, I've visited many times, but you see the change that's happened in Delaware. The single-party rule in Delaware has just crushed the state. Our schools are fighting for last place in quality, and the economy has just gone down tubes for the last 20 years plus. So for me,
go ahead.
For me, it's all about regaining control of Delaware. There's a Marxist movement coming into Delaware. They call it the Working Families Party. They're gaining seats at Wilmington City Council, and also at our State House. And the Democrats here in Delaware are afraid of them. They don't want to say boo to them. It's taboo to say publicly. So they're letting them in. And just to go and lead into the Republican side, for the last 20 years, the Republican Party in Delaware have been genuflecting to the Democrats and sacrificing to the altar rhino candidates just to keep the peace between the two sides. Enough of that. It's time for a strong Republican to provide the people of Delaware a strong contrast, a choice. Not just a choice between light blue and blue or crazy left, but a red. Someone who wants to bring the country and the state back from the brink.
Now, first of all, I just want to thank you. Obviously, a lifetime of service, both in civil service and obviously in the military. You covered a lot of your background. Just for the sake of it, from an educational point of view, I just want to mention, frankly, because I've never heard of this degree before, but I think it's amazing. You have a bachelor's degree in aviation computer science, which is obviously a very specialized field, but you went on to get your master's degree in international relations from the University of Oklahoma. Of course, you're a graduate of the U.S. Army War College as well. So, I mean, a very accomplished background. You've served your country. You come back. You look at the situation in Delaware. Again, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm a rare breed. I'm an actual native Washingtonian. I spent a lot of summertime in Delaware. We used to go down to the East Coast beaches every year. And when you drive from Washington, through Delaware to get to the coast, I mean, it's a beautiful state. There's a good deal of agriculture as well as manufacturing, but you also see kind of the depressed towns, the areas where whatever it might be that, they lost a major industry, those kind of things. And over time, you talk about the one party rule. The thing that's kind of obvious is in that time where you have the Democrats running the show, as you mentioned, Republicans really not challenging it, you don't really see any major improvements when you get outside of the kind of the tourist towns, right? I mean, the beach towns obviously get a lot of revenue that come through them because of the tourism. You mentioned something in your lineup there that I think is so key, which is education. If the younger generations in Delaware aren't getting a solid education, how can they be the innovators of tomorrow to rebuild that state? And as you pointed out, they sit kind of at the bottom, right? They're circling the drain when it comes to public education. That's a big piece of it. How would you fix that as the next senator?
It's about returning to the American system of economics. So again, very abstract, but in practicality, you see Trump instituting tariffs in order to bring manufacturing back to the United States. How does that fix schooling? Well, when you have parents who have a good job, stress is lower. Maybe just one parent needs to work. So now the kid has lots of love at home, lots of attention. And when the kid goes to school, they're learning. And because there are a bunch of kids in the same boat, as in a good way, the teacher can actually teach. What we have now is a stressed system where parents are, fighting with two or three jobs, maybe a single family situation, and the stress rubs off to the kid. And the kid goes to school and acts out. Now, the Democrats, they take this as, we can take control of this. We can fix stuff out. We'll turn schools into kind of a social hub, a social networking place where we can put our loving arms around them and teach them the way. It's a destruction of the family core that actually starts with the economy. When you start returning real jobs, production, actually making real things, not the service industry or your baristas or Amazon delivery guys, actually building things again, then you can have a family where dad or mom are working, or that's the best solution. And one of the parents are at home to take care, raise the kids, and the kids are robust. They're taken care of, and they go to school. They're ready to learn. So that's trying to finagle a different type of school structure or more money into the school is the wrong scenario. You're treating a symptom. The core problem in America, which Trump is fixing, is returning to the American system of economics to bring jobs back, good jobs back to the United States.
Well, and if I may add, ultimately, what you're describing, I mean, we talk about the 50s in America, right? The, people in their house with the white picket fence and that kind of thing. But you're talking about a restoration of the family, ultimately. You mentioned the idea that if financial stress is lower, you could have a stay-home parent again that's there guiding the children. I mean, this is part of a thriving economic system, is one where you have solid, intact families, where you have a mother and father in a loving relationship raising children in the same home. That's the ideal that we've lost sight of. And again, that's the kind of the fundamental building block to making families stronger. And there's certainly, you have to have strong economics for it.
Absolutely. And in this period of, well, now it's reversing decline, we're moving up again. But during this period of decline, you had this opening for the leftists. They see this opportunity, we can replace the family with the state. And it's classic Marxism. So this opportunity that's been exposed to the Marxists of America for the last, I'll say 20 years, but definitely we're starting to see it in every day. We'll look at Mandami, New York. It's manifesting the actual votes. And I get why he's being elected. You have kids who grew up during this last 20-year drama who are disaffected. They're like, hey, I graduated from school. I have no job. I got a crappy degree, and I'm a barista. And my debt is through my years. I can't afford to have a family. I can't afford to have a house. Yada yada. These things we hear a lot about. This brings an opening for the Marxists with this happy, happy, joy, joy, unicorns everywhere. We'll promise a world for you, and people get gravitating towards that.
Now, this brings me to a great time, because something that you're out on the fore on that I think is also very important. I've got 5 children. The youngest, I'm going to mention age, and you'll see why in a minute. My youngest 2 are 16 and 14. My oldest is 22. And all 5 of them, I was surprised that the younger 2 were even on this. One of the things they all were paying attention to and have a pretty heavy dislike of at this point is AI, because they look at it as the greatest challenge to having a promising career is the overtaking of AI on everything. Of course, in my position, one of the things I look at is how it invades our privacy, what it does, in terms of breaking down those fundamental building blocks. You propose, as part of your candidacy, basically an AI model that is based on making sure the Bill of Rights is respected. I think that's brilliant. Tell us your concept there.
Well, first, we have to understand what is AI. AI is nothing more than statistics at scale. It goes through a database and comes up with an answer based on probabilities. So one, it's not alive, and two, because it's not alive, it can never truly be creative. Only the human mind can be more creative because we're built in the image of God. The machine is not. It will always be behind. Now, the problem with our schools is our school structure is based on the 19th century for the Industrial Revolution, where we have to have kids go through these factory-like blocks to make a test, pass it, so they can physically go into the work office and do the math manually, to do the calculations manually, and other things manually. That age is gone. You have computers now. You have AI now. So we're still teaching our kids how to compete against a calculator. That's the wrong approach. We need a classical form of education to be primary in this in our new American experiment, where we teach kids how to be creative, how they can understand to be human, the rhetoric, the logic, or illogic of a human. Make that the key to education. So now, if you have a brilliant young mind who understands the classics, understands rhetoric, understands music, even he can weave those different AI box in a symphony of creativity. It's very powerful. But if the opposite happens, where you're just trying to go toe to toe with a calculator, you will lose each time. And I think that's the downside of what folks are hearing on TV, the narrative that AI bot will take over. Not happening. The bots are good for their little workload, but there is so much opportunity for job creation, and it's happening already. I think Ford, the Ford CEO, maybe I could be wrong on which American car company, but they went all in on trying to use AI in their production facilities. It failed. And they're starting to bring people back to the facilities and use AI as an assistant. So we're going through this learning curve of what is AI? How can we slap it into the business model and we'll watch it fall and then be creative how to use it properly? The industry will be looking for kids who come out of school who know how to think, be creative, and use these tools like a Michelangelo painting a Sistine Chapel. And they can do that with AI.
Now we're talking to John Shulli. He's running for Senate. Wants to win their primaries in September in Delaware. He's facing off against a kind of a Republican opponent, but he's looking for your help. You can see more at shulli.org, SHULLI.org. We just have a few minutes, but I want to talk about this, John, because I think when I first started researching the race, I thought I was misreading this. It couldn't possibly be the case that the party, the Republican Party in Delaware, is favoring your opponent in the primary, Dr. Michael Katz, who's my understanding, unless I'm reading it wrong everywhere, was a Democrat until just last year. And suddenly he's had some kind of road to Damascus experience that we're supposed to believe is real. And they're getting behind him versus your long history of service and obviously your clear understanding of freedom and liberty and what it takes to be truly a Republican running for office.
Right. So he became a Republican just this January as he filed federally for office. So he's a blow-in. Now, why is the Republican Party following him here? Again, it's about groupthink. It's about how they wish things to be. Back in 2010, you may remember when Mike Castle went against Miss O'Donnell, the witch.
Yes, I do.
She had the strong support of the Tea Party. Mike Castle, who was kind of the centrist, more left-leaning, he ignored the Tea Party, said you guys are crazy, and he lost. And then that's where Chris Toons got into play. The Republican Party have not recovered from that loss. They're searching for this centrist, left of center kind of guy to lead them. And they're getting crushed every time they try to do this. They're not listening to their base still. The base says Tea Party plus MAGA. The MAGA is nothing more than, hey, let's return to the American system of economics. Let's bring reality back to the United States. And the Republican Party here in Delaware, they will find out this September and November that there are a lot of Republicans and Democrats who want change. And they're going to get moved over and replaced coming November. That being the Republican Party. New blood coming in.
Amen. And by the way, what you're describing with them reminds me that very famous quote, half measures avail us nothing, right? These people that they constantly want to just do the bare minimums, then they wonder why they don't win because you don't give them a stark difference. John Shulli, you present and are that stark difference. a chance for Delaware, because you're going to go up against Chris Coons in the general. What a beautiful, imagine the upset. You winning, unseating Chris Coons, and bringing common sense back to Delaware. That would be a seismic shift for a great state that needs it and deserves it. So I'm glad that you joined us today. I hope people will check you out at shulli.org, SHULLI.org. And we'll have to have you back as we get closer to the primary as well. Whatever we can do to help you and to support your work, please let us know. Thank you for joining us.